Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of PermaSlug. My name is Jonathan, and in this video I'm going to kind of do this in two parts. The reason why is because this video is based around how to get your first client as a relatively new freelancer. Now, this is specifically in the business of website design, digital marketing, paid advertising, something to that effect, and I think the principles all kind of apply to really anybody trying to start their own business, especially a service-based business. But in this particular instance, I'm referring to digital marketing and website design, which is specifically what I do. So really, to kind of get started, what I wanted to cover is just some key points that I think are critical to getting your first client, and then the second part of this video is going to be how to get good clients, because there's a difference between getting clients and getting good clients, and you'll kind of experience that if you haven't already. The first tip I have for you is just absolutely live and breathe your brand. Hopefully by this point you already have a logo, you have some kind of tagline. Of course, your website should be ready, and maybe people like your girlfriend or your mom or your brothers or whoever already know about your business. And you can go ahead and call it a business. I mean, you're basically beginning the steps to start that process. So you're really just going to want to share it with everybody. And I know that sounds silly, but don't hide it. What I did at first was kind of be embarrassed of it, and that's not the right way to do it. Make it say, owner at business name on your Facebook profile. Tell everybody about it. Post on Facebook, and you'll be surprised at how much reception you get, even before you ever get your first client. People are very receptive, and you're going to have a lot of support, even from people that you probably haven't talked to in a long time. Definitely keep business cards on you at all times. That's going to be really important, because you'll come across people every single day who will ask you what you do, and you can say, well, actually, I build websites. Here's my card. And more often than not, people will call you, and it's really amazing when that happens. I'm a huge advocate of offline networking. So there's all kinds of stuff you're probably already thinking of, like the Chamber of Commerce. In my area, there are young professionals organizations, but I'm actually not a part of any of those. I've tried all that stuff. But what I'm a huge advocate of is an organization called BNI, and it's I think it stands for like Business Networking International or something like that. But the idea is that there are local chapters all over the country that meet weekly, and you might think, oh my gosh, you meet every single week, but hold on, let me get to that. BNI is a fantastic organization because you meet weekly with the same group of professionals, and the idea is to pass business with qualified referrals. So, I don't get anything for saying this. I'm just such a huge advocate of it. I would say in the last two and a half years that I've been a part of the group, around about 90% of my business has come from BNI in one form or another. And that can be either members of the group, which a lot of times in our industry, as far as website design, every single member in there is a potential client, who will probably end up being your first clients, if I'm honest. But like I said, either the people in that group are going to be your potential clients, or you're going to have people who you get referrals to outside of the group, and then maybe that person is going to refer you down the line. And that's exactly what's happened. I've gotten referrals to the point where I can't even keep track of where that referral originated from, which is obviously fantastic. That turns into wonderful business. It does cost a few $100s a year to join, and sometimes your local chapter will have dues, either monthly or quarterly, for things like, if a restaurant is hosting you, or just kind of depending on the event space that you're in. And so what I think the most important thing is of course, not only does it give you direct business, but it also makes you a better speaker, because you have to get up in front of a room of 20 or sometimes 30, and in crazy circumstances it's more like 50 business professionals who are already business owners, and they're looking to find ways to grow their business, but they do that by growing yours. There's a principle that they call giver's gain, and what that means is if I give business to you, you're going to give business to me. And so that's exactly how it works. I can say with absolute confidence that BNI is one of the best ways to kickstart your business in the early stages. If I can share one piece of advice, it would be to stay away from pay-per-click advertising pretty much as a whole. As far as Facebook ads and Google ads go, you might be an expert in those spaces, but of course they can be incredibly expensive in the digital marketing space, or even the website space. So what I would do, and what I personally did, was spend the money instead of on pay-per-click advertising on brochures or business cards, other marketing materials like that. And really, you don't need anything fancy, just like a rack card and maybe a business card. You can go to local businesses and drop that kind of stuff off. I never did and never will do cold calling. That's just not who I am, and I'm not going to do that. So instead, what I would do is go actually visit these businesses, and that still is cold marketing in some sense. And the type of clientele you're going to get from that is not necessarily going to be exactly what you want, but it will be good quality business. They're established enough to have a proper office space. So you can look for, accountants or other professionals where you're going to be able to go in there and see somebody face to face and leave something. What I personally would do is choose 10 businesses a day that I could go visit, and then usually what would end up happening is, after 3 or 4 days, so 30 or 40 businesses I visited, I might get 1 or 2 clients out of that. And 9 times out of 10, it was something really small, like just some basic website changes, a couple hours of labor. Sometimes it was a new website, but the budgets were going to be in the neighborhood of $1,000, $1,200. And in the early stages, I would take whatever I could get. That was totally fine. The next thing I would highly recommend is keep your day job until one of two things happens. Either you get a certain amount of money saved up in the bank, which covers all of your bills for a certain period of time. For me, that was basically 90 days for 3 months. And I've heard a lot of people say you need 6 months or a year. To me, that just really wasn't something that I was willing to wait for. And I had total confidence that I could do it. And what I ended up doing was leaving with more like, 60, 65 days of money in the bank. And that was very nerve-wracking. In the first 30 days, I did get, a project or two as far as a website build. So that helped cover it. But what I found was that it made it really hard to kind of get the clients that I was actually after. So we'll talk about how to make sure you get good clients later on, like I said. But what I did was I actually worked at Verizon in the past. And so I had the flexibility sometimes of starting the day at 10 a.m. or sometimes more like 11 a.m., things like that. So I was able to meet clients either first thing in the morning or sometimes later after hours. After hours generally doesn't work, but early in the morning did. So I could meet somebody at 8 a.m. or, take my lunch break and go meet them for 45 minutes at a restaurant close by. But what that allowed me to do was basically take on a couple of clients and have some income, some revenue going before I left my job to kind of pad that transition. But ideally, the other option would be to have your monthly recurring revenue from your clients set up in such a way that your transition is completely seamless. So your income at your day job matches your revenue that you're making from the business, which is incredibly hard to do without having the time to meet people 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. So with that in mind, that's going to take more like 6 or 12 months. That's going to take a long time. So if you're a person with some serious patience, that's the way to do it. If you're somebody who's really passionate about this and wants to just kind of kick everything off, I would go the save 90 days worth of income and then just hit the ground running with a plan. The other thing that I firmly believe in is don't discount your prices right away just because you're new. What you're going to end up finding is that people will sort of expect that, but if you don't really give that as an option, then most of the time people are just willing to pay your prices. So for instance, let's say you have a website that you think is going to cost $1,500 to do. Maybe give that client that website for $1,200. And the reason why is because you're sort of acknowledging the fact that you're new. They're kind of an early adopter for you, but you're not discounting yourself in such a way that you're sort of setting yourself in a lower tier. That's something I believe super strongly is really important. It's critical to the success of your business, is not undercutting. Pricing is a whole nother conversation, but definitely don't discount yourself in the beginning just because you're new. Good clients will understand that you're new, and although they're not willing to pay top dollar for somebody that's brand new, they definitely still acknowledge that what you do is valuable. And there is a certain degree of eventualities that you'll come across, and so you have to kind of discount for that. But the idea of you discounting just for the sake of you being a brand new freelancer is really not worth it, in my opinion. Another thing to keep in mind is that success takes time. So you're going to see all kinds of success stories of people that, made a Facebook ads agency and they make people $10 million a day and all this kind of fluff stuff. But in reality, I don't really think it's like that. It's taken me about 3 years to get to a point where I have a positive net income every month from my monthly recurring clients. And I can't tell you how kind of freeing and rewarding that is. So like I said, in the early stages, all of my income was basically project-based work. So it was always sort of this ebb and flow of, okay, wow, I did $6,000 in revenue this month, but I don't have anything in my pipeline at the moment. So how long will this last? And then you sit on this money, and then 30 and 60 days pass by, and suddenly your bank account balance starts to shrink again. But that that monthly recurring revenue has really helped my sanity level. It's helped me focus on other projects and doing a good job for the clients that I have. And I have about 20 clients, and of that monthly recurring revenue, about 7 of them make up 90% of my revenue. So if that gives you any idea how valuable just a small space of your clients is, keep that in mind. And then the remaining, roughly 13 people make up the final 10% of that, but I don't discount those people. It's just that I'm not doing, digital marketing campaigns for those clients. That's why the kind of price gulf is there. Be prepared for some quiet months as well. For me, I live in Florida, so we're really heavily dependent on tourism, and so the winter time, like December, January, February, can be really brutally quiet. So make sure you budget for that, and also, of course, for taxes. Those two things are really going to bite you if you have kind of a seasonal area. And the first year in business, the taxes aren't too terribly bad, but your second year is really where it's going to hit you. Now with some of the new tax laws for 2018, I don't think it's going to be quite as bad, but still definitely not something to mess around with. But the final thing is, with all of that said, there's a high risk reward factor here. So once you kind of get that first little twinge of success, it's incredibly rewarding, and you'll never ever go back to a day job. I know for a fact that I couldn't do it. I would just go insane if I did. You don't have to report to anybody else. You get to make your own schedule. All the things that everybody knows comes with owning your own business. And there are, other issues, like you do have bosses in some sense. All of your clients are effectively your bosses, but you should have set the precedent early on that this is how we're going to do business, and I'm going to deliver exactly what I told you I was going to, and people aren't going to drive you insane. The best part about that is if you have somebody that either can't be coached or you just don't jive with, hopefully you recognize that now and you can see that that's not a type of client that you want in the future. But most importantly, if you have a contract with them, which you should, then you're able to fall back on that contract and fire that client. So effectively you get to fire your own bosses. Like I said, the whole idea of freelancing and running your own business is incredibly rewarding. I wouldn't trade it for anything else. And hopefully if you gain nothing else out of this video other than some inspiration to continue trudging along and try to get out on your own, that's exactly what I want you to take away from this. So I love being able to work for myself. I love being able to help people's businesses and do something that's genuinely impactful for them. So like I said, hopefully you guys get some kind of value out of this, and I will look forward to seeing you guys in a future video. Definitely stay tuned for part 2, which is going to be how to get good clients and not just how to get your first client. So I'll look forward to seeing you guys in that video. We'll talk soon.